Good morning, good morning, Dave. Good morning, Mike. Good morning, Ricky. Welcome to Talking Niagara this morning, and welcome everybody. We are basically talking about the news that impacts Niagara, and this is now Thursday, July 23rd. Welcome all.
Welcome.
Morning, Dave. So what's going on?
Well, the St. Catherine's June. Oh, I keep getting this echo. I thought you were talking back to me. Anyway, St. Catherine's Junior A's athletics last night won their first game of the semifinals against the Orangeville Northmen. The Orangeville Northmen are a very good team. They have been for years. This year, however, the St. Catherine's Athletics Junior A's are the top of the league. They won 15 games this year, lost 3, tied 1, something like that. They have an incredible record. And last night, it was another goaltender contest. There were, last night, 96 shots. 96 shots and only 10 goals scored. You know, in lacrosse, every 3 to 4 goals, there's a score normally. The score last night was 6-4 on a hard-fought, hard-hitting contest. Yeah. And yet, even at that, with some real good sharpshooters out there, and even then, it was only 6-4, a very, very tight game.
Yeah. Okay, 90 odd shots. And when you think the World Cup final had 11 by Spain and 1 by Argentina.
But you're comparing apples to volcanoes, basically. It's like there is an incredible difference between the two. Lacrosse is a fairly high-scoring game. Yeah. If the score was 12-8, that would have been a very conservative, typical type of game, 12-8. But the games I've been seeing lately, the scores have been really reduced. The goaltenders are much better than they ever used to be, or the guys aren't shooting as well. I don't know what it is. The defense is quite good too. They're keeping the guys to the outside. Go ahead.
Yeah. Is there a rule about where you can shoot from? I.e., in hockey, if you shoot from the opposing, in ice hockey, if you shoot from the opposing half, it won't count, will it? Is there a rule like that in lacrosse? No, okay. Yeah, because in hockey, if you shoot from the defensive half, I thought you do. I thought you couldn't do that.
Well, are you mixing up offsides with that kind of thing? You're missing offsides and icing and all those kind of things.
I don't.
In lacrosse, you have similar rules, but you can score from any place on the court.
So literally,
for instance, if there's an empty net, let's say the guys are coming on with an empty net, and you get the ball, and you're way back, even behind your own goal, and you shoot it towards the other end, and it scores. It's good.
Good. Okay. All right. That's good. Okay. So that sort of thing contributes to a higher goal score, I guess.
Because the thing that contributes to a higher, higher amount of goals scored in lacrosse is because you got a stick that can propel the ball at pretty high speeds and pretty accurately too. It's not like a hockey stick, where you can only have control on a blade. This, you've got it in a basket and you could put it where you want it to, low, high, very quickly change direction, even though the net's only 4x4, and they get the biggest guy possible to fill that net with as much equipment as possible. And even at that, if you look at a goalie in a lacrosse net and you think no one's going to score on that guy, it's not true. There's just so many avenues for that ball to get in there.
There's always that corner around where the face is, or where the arm is not, right?
There's always a place to get there. You know,
you
can't shoot from the crease, by the way. There's a semicircular in front of the goal, so you can't be in the crease and shoot, but you can jump up right in front of the goalie as long as your feet are not on the ground. Shoot the puck or shoot the ball behind them or under them or whatever you want to do. As long as that ball goes across the line and you don't hit that crease before that, that's a very good way of scoring.
Okay, all right. Wow, it sounds good, and good luck to St. Catharines.
Yeah, they're doing quite well. Last night was a hard contest. Like I say, the Orangemen last year, the Orangemen were right in the files of the Minto Cup, which is a lacrosse contest that's happened for 90 odd years now. So every year. Anyway, there's lots of good lacrosse out there, and we've got a couple of good teams right up there in St. Catharines, and the fee is right. The place was packed last night, of course, because it's a semifinal. And if you want to see a good lacrosse, the price is right. Adult $10, senior $5. Buy a 50-50 for $5. I won the 50-50 once. And yeah. And last night would have been a great payday. You probably would have got $700 last night on a 50-50.
That would have been nice. Yeah. All right. Okay. So, yeah. So well done. Congratulations, St. Catharines. All right. So how many? So is that straight to the final, or is there another? Do they have an away game to play?
Yeah, they go back and forth between. It's a typical. It's a best out of 7.
Oh, okay.
So they're gonna go to Orangeville to play the next game, and then they'll be back. They'll be back in Niagara or at St. Catharines, the Canada Game Center there. They'll be there again on Saturday night.
Yeah,
at 7:00.
Okay. All right. Okay. So yeah, I wish them well. Okay, so Niagara Falls orders this new road maintenance technology, which is a 230,000 Bagala BA 10,000 asphalt recycler, and it's aimed at improving pothole repairs and reducing the cost of waste. Basically, it produces hot mix asphalt as needed, and it uses recycled materials. So I'm guessing what they effectively do is, instead of filling the hole, let's say a 3x3 hole, they take off the asphalt on the rest of the road area and basically fix half the road for, say, a 10x10 meter for a 10-meter slot or something.
Well, the problem was we found out that particularly during wintertime, they don't make asphalt.
Yeah.
They don't make asphalt because it's an expensive operation and they have to make a lot of it. This, on the other hand, this machine, and we are forced to use cold patch. And cold patch asphalt does not really work that well most of the time.
Yeah.
They take a patch and they fill it in the hole, they stamp it in, and it really doesn't bond that well, particularly even in cold weather or even warm weather. It's still a hard thing to do. It's a very, very temporary system. Sometimes it digs itself out very quickly, making the average person on a street full of potholes very angry because the cold patch doesn't last that long. And so what this does is it makes hot asphalt, which is stuff you really need. That's the stuff that bonds.
Yeah.
So it can do that, and it's a smaller, more portable unit. So you can make asphalt, and you could take your old asphalt, which we have, every city pretty much has areas of its old asphalt where it's milled down, the old asphalt. Now that comes in anything from gravel size pieces to chunks. What they do then is they take it into this more portable machine and heat the stuff up to about 300 degrees. And of course it has already its combining elements in it. So it's got the aggregate, the stone and everything you put in, and it's got the bitumen that's already been there. So you heat that all up. Yeah. Now you have to add more ingredients. You have to add more bitumen, sort of what they call cement, right? Asphalt cement. And mix it up. In this way, it doesn't cost you as much because you're using the old stuff right. And if you get the recipe right, if you get the heat just right, the size of chunks you're using just right, and everything, it works very well. And then you can use this hot asphalt to go about and fix more better the potholes and things during the wintertime, or even during the summertime. If you've got potholes or problems with your roads, you can do some pretty good patchwork, anything from small to large. Now you think yourself, well, you've now made an investment in this amount of asphalt. What do you do with it? Well, another thing, if you invest in this particular machine, you've got it for your own city. And if you've got a little extra asphalt, you can tell your neighbors, look, I got more asphalt, you want it? And you can sell it to them. So you get St. Catharines or Welland or somewhere else. So the city council has looked at this, they've seen a demonstration, and they've been convinced that putting out about $250,000 might be a good idea.
Yeah, so less of fill and pack going around, stuffing holes and patting them down, more of actually putting stuff that really works. The only thing about this is that obviously hot asphalt takes a while to set, doesn't it?
I think you'll probably, I don't know how long it would take in the wintertime, whatever. Your big problems, of course, are in the late winter and the spring when or if you've had a lot of thaws during winter, that busts things up. That's where the water gets underneath and busts things up.
Yeah.
So we have some pretty bad potholes there that will do some damage to people's tires and everything like that. So it's really worth it. In the view of the city, they have been convinced that this is able. Now, there was a time you couldn't do that. So the real problem here is the chef. They call it the chef, the person that puts the different elements together. You got to get the heat just right. You can't get it that hot. You'll burn the old stuff. If you burn the old stuff, it won't adhere as well with the cement. And what you have to do too is the leftover recycled asphalt that you have that you put into the asphalt maker basically has to be the right size and the right temperature, and you have to get it just so that the adhesive qualities that are still inherent in the recycled asphalt are utilized, so that you don't have to add too much more new cement to the mixture. This is far better, of course, than to use brand new asphalt, which would be very expensive.
Well, from the picture provided by this, it looks like you hook it up to a truck and tow it off to wherever you need it.
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
it's you do with the concrete. Yeah, like you do with the concrete mixer that keeps the concrete mixing in the thing until it's actually poured, right?
Yeah. So the advantage of this is it can be used any time of the year, whereas we'd be keeping told during the wintertime, you don't have any hot asphalt being made because it's a big operation, and it's used for summertime when you're doing road work and so on and so forth. So it's a better sort of solution, because you can get hot asphalt into anything like a pothole or roads or whatever. So let's say you're going to make you identified a whole bunch of potholes around the city, and you get your mix going, and you got a good mix of recycled asphalt going, and then you can go around over the city and fill in the major potholes. If you got small areas where you can strip it and fix it real quick, you can. It's still not used for major operations.
It's purely and simply to do those small bits. And I'm presuming what they do is clean up around the hole and fill out, where you may have a 3x3 hole, with a certain depth. They're gonna strip it out around the edge of that 3x3 and probably fill in say a 10x10 kind of patch.
sometimes it could be just quick utilitarian. Yeah, you know, if you've got a lot of potholes, they might just go around and just fill it up with asphalt without doing too much prep work in and around there, and get back to it in the spring. In the meantime, just fill it up.
Yeah.
In the meantime, because you may have a whole lot, and you will have. Like, look at what happened this winter in the springtime. I couldn't believe how many potholes that we had this year, more than I can ever remember. Everywhere, it seemed.
Yeah, and a lot of it is because in January, February, we had such a lot of snow that the snow plows were out there doing a lot of work, and of course, every time they hit a bump, every time they hit some oddity, they scrape up the road, don't they? And then, of course, we drive over it to make it even worse.
Well, mostly it's heaving up from ice. Water gets underneath, and ice heaves it up.
Yeah. But again, that then gets scraped and pushed away by the snowplow.
Yeah, once it heaves up, it could get caught by snow plows and so on. Most of the guys are trained trying not to do that, but you know, it happens.
Yeah, but they can't see every inch of the road all the time, no matter how attentive they are, right?
Yeah. So there's but mostly it is the water getting under the asphalt, swelling up, and the ground underneath getting moist, and then being heaved with ice, and then and here's Mike's comment: cold patch what?
It's a waste,
just a waste of taxpayers' money.
I 100% agree with that, because but we've been so reliant upon cold patch to deal with those kind of holes that winter produces almost every year.
So they're going to take the money to buy this. They're going to take the money out of the casino reserve fund. Okay. That's where they're going to take the money from, so that it doesn't come out, doesn't immediately add on to the revenue or the commitments we have for other stuff. So we have this casino reserve fund. So that's a good place to utilize that casino reserve fund.
Yeah, this is one of these type of things that when I look at it and when I hear about what I've seen today on here, this is good money being spent well. Right? Sometimes you have to kind of, yes, it sounds expensive, $230,000 for what amounts to a truck trailer. There's probably more to it than that. I'm oversimplifying, but essentially, it sounds like a good project to me, and that what the city is investing here is good money. It is good money to actually fix what we know to be a real problem around the city.
Yeah, it seems to me, I looked it up. I looked at a bunch of quick little videos about recycling asphalt. I looked into what it takes to do it. And I think the article is quite clear here that it is a very good solution to use recycle. We got lots of recycled asphalt. Every community does. As a matter of fact, you can buy that if you want. Other communities do. I don't know about this community, but other communities will sell that stuff. Will crush it up, and it makes really good driveway bed, better than gravel. It has the same qualities of gravel, but even better, because it will bond a little bit together. So if you instead of making a gravel driveway, you make it out of this stuff. They claim that it's even better. And it keeps the dust down, because there's no dust with it where there is gravel. So there's a bunch of different things you can use recycled asphalt for. And but in this particular case, they take the recycled asphalt that you already have from stripping your roads, milling and stripping the roads, right? And once you've milled it and it's there, you can reuse it. The chief thing here, though, is to make sure your chefs are exactly right. Your cooks know exactly what they're doing.
Absolutely.
That's the critical part.
Yeah.
That's the critical part. If you get the recipe right, the right heat, the right recipe, you can't miss. But that's the tricky part.
And I presume that's all in, of course, the training that the manufacturer Begala will provide to the workers in the city.
Yeah. So if you want your blue ribbon in asphalt, you have to go to some sort of training school and learn how to cook asphalt just right. Your hard hat will be on the shape of a chef's cap.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. So here's an interesting one that you brought up. In doses of CO2 clears Alzheimer's or some of the proteins that cause Alzheimer's from the brain. However, I did a bit of looking into this one, and they're saying it's not necessarily, this is unproven at the moment.
Yes, it is. There's a number of Alzheimer's, of course, is going to be one of those things that plague our generation, being the baby boom generation. There's a huge amount of us living much longer than anyone else has lived in human history, which means that it now, like things like Alzheimer's and dementia, were not particular problems in the past. They existed, but most of the population died by the time they were in the 70s. And so those people who live past 70s or 80s or 90s, even like my mother now is 94. I've met people 100, 102, 100, you know what I mean? That they're still walking around, no problem. My mom's building in Lundy's Manor, her neighbor across the way was 102 years old. The only problem she had was eyesight. She had these big Coke bottles, but she could walk without a cane, do everything, talk. You know, she's 102. So, but with age comes that problem of dementia.
Yeah,
your body's not working as well. Alzheimer's is a thing.
Yeah.
So now there are more and more people looking into how to alleviate things like Alzheimer's, which is only one of the dimensions, but a very a big one. And
what they're basically saying about this is carbon dioxide is a potent vasodilator, meaning it widens blood vessels in the brain. And researchers have found that intermittent exposure to elevated CO2 altered blood vessels and pulsations, which appear to help drive movement of cerebral spinal fluid through the lymphatic system. But this has only been a small study, and that basically clears proteins from an Alzheimer's that have been linked to Alzheimer's disease.
Yeah, so basically what it is, it's like kind of a Drano for your brain. Basically, that's what they're thinking. Inhaling large breaths of CO2, dominated CO2. The CO2 then gets through your bloodstream and sort of shocks the system and shakes the amyloid proteins. I think they're amyloid proteins. I'm not sure, but whatever it is in your brain that causes Alzheimer's, shakes that up and then gets rid of them, at least temporarily. We've also found that and of course, this is just being tested. It's being tested on animals, of course. It's had some success on animals. The other treatment I'll bring up, and we've brought it up on this show before too, is anti-inflams. They have found out by accident that some anti-inflammatory drugs reduce the effects of Alzheimer's. And so if you take something like this, the CO2 shocking thing combined with certain kinds of anti-inflammatories, you might be able to arrest Alzheimer's. You probably won't be able to reverse it, but you may be able to stall it so it doesn't get much worse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and the thing is that with the increase of things like Alzheimer's disease and other brain impairments, that sounds a good thing. But of course, what we've not got is this is only a small study. What we need is a proper peer-reviewed study.
Yes, this shows promise. This shows promise that by inhaling CO2, you can sort of blast off the proteins that cause the problems in the brain for Alzheimer's, shake them out of their spots, and have you deposit them in any other way through the urine. It's basically when it gets filtered out. This combined with other treatments, I think it's going to be something like AIDS. Alzheimer's is going to be something like AIDS, where in order to control AIDS, you have to have a cocktail of drugs so that you can fool the AIDS virus. In this particular case, I think it's probably going to be the same sort of thing, at least in the early stages. You're going to have shotgun blast the Alzheimer's, maybe with CO2, maybe with inflammatories and some other things they might find out.
Yeah.
But there is hope. I worked at a hospital back in the 80s, and people dying of Alzheimer's was a horrible thing. I've had friends whose parents have had it, and it's not good.
Yeah.
It's not good.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, it's not good. It's actually been it's been on the, if you wind back the clock 100 years, instances of Alzheimer's are much lower than they are today. But of course, you explained earlier on why, in part, why that is, because we're living longer.
Yeah, well, we also have a lot more pollutants. Like, people didn't live that much, that long. They were very vulnerable to things we aren't nowadays, because we've got vaccines and medicines and all that other thing, all those other sort of things. But we are hit with all kinds of processed foods that aren't really that healthy for us, and we're introducing all kinds of chemicals through processed foods that mess us up, and the air pollution and toxins and everything else, all which motivates this, plus the fact that we're getting older. The population is generally much older. Okay, so moving on, Niagara Falls Military Museum is got a 1-year plan to develop a future vision, and basically this has been set by the city. They want to ensure that there's been a lot of questions about the money spent on the military museum and how effective it is. Should we be doing it? Those kinds of questions. And I'm not asking these questions. I'm repeating the types of questions that are being asked out there about the continuance of the military museum. And the city has basically told the museum trustees to actually get their act in order and develop a future vision. Well, the armory is 115 years old.
Yeah.
It is very historical. You'll find these armories all over Ontario, by the way.
Yeah.
The one in London, they had a pretty big one in London, Ontario. They sold it to one of the big hotel chains, the Delta chain, I think it was, and they built a hotel right in and used the old armory as part of the hotel. So they saved at least part of it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And what we have here is land. It's a big hunk of land. It's in good shape, but we have this museum. So what do we do with it? Of course, we have a lot of historical artifacts and things in that museum, but most of the rooms in there are underutilized if you've ever gone there. But the fact of the matter is, that is a place where the police band practices. That is the place where I think it was Air Cadets, was it, that go there. They get free. They can go there for free.
I wonder. I've actually not this particular building, but the one in the one of the armories, one of the buildings, military buildings I've seen in St. Catharines. It's right in the heart of St. Catharines, and this is, of course, in Niagara. But but I actually keep wondering about could they rent out to businesses and the like the second floor.
Now, the museum not only houses thousands of artifacts, but is also used by multiple user groups such as the Lundy's Lane Historical Society and the Niagara Regional Police Band. It is also home to 2835 Royal Canadian Artillery Cadet Corps, a free program for youths 12 to 18. The free part might have to change. They might have to pay some nominal fee.
I think they should. Help. I think those sort of organizations that rent rooms from places like this should be paying free. I remember an organization that I was a part of when I was in my early 20s. They used to pay, in modern parlance, 150 a month for renting a room for a couple of hours every week.
To me, I think like to find ways in which to utilize the building more. There's meeting rooms you could have there. Unfortunately, I don't think it's accessible, and that might be a problem because it has it's not accessible to the public. It needs an elevator, things like that for accessibility. For people in wheelchairs or other things. So that may be a problem going forward for renting out the rooms and things like that for meetings.
That would be the other thing. Investment, though, that would be a worthwhile investment because that gets people up onto the second floor, and that brings in a return because people can rent rooms then. Well,
they're looking for. They've sort of put a stay of execution on the museum to. They were supported up to the end of April this year, and they gave them a stay of execution basically for another year to the end of April. But the museum folks say they need a little bit more than that. They need more time because if they do have more time, they can then go and get federal and provincial grants. Mm-hmm. Federal and provincial grants may help you with that kind of thing of making the building more accessible. The other thing I would like to suggest here is have an annual or biannual lottery for the museum. What's wrong with that? You can have a huge lottery, advertise it all around, make a pile of money. You could also try to get it, do some fundraising through Delta Bingo, which is a thing available to a lot of groups. So there's ways and means by which you can get some money for it. The other thing is education. Get people there. Have events too. Like have a 1812 event or a First World War event. Can you imagine all the young men that mustered in front of that armory, went away to France in 1914 to 1918 and never came back? And those that mustered there between 1939 and 1945, who mustered in front of that building and never came back. So this is a deeply historical, symbolic building,
Okay, so
no, the city owns it, Rick.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
The city owns the feds used to own it, but they handed over the city.
That was my understanding as well. That happened about 20 years ago, if I recall correctly.
I don't remember.
I seem to remember reading something when we first encountered this. It was either handed over in the early 2000s or the late 90s. I could be wrong, but that's what comes to mind about the history I recall of this building when they were talking about it a few years ago. No, I think that what they got to look at and explore other options. And as I said, if you've got groups, say like Toastmasters, that would rent a room from the museum on a weekly basis, and they might be able to pay, a couple of hundred a month in terms of rent. That sort of thing is always worthwhile, right?
I, of course, thought of that, but we can't go anywhere that's not accessible.
Yes, and
we've had a number of members that require that are in either that need help getting into the room.
You're absolutely 100% right, and that is exactly one of the reasons why they need the federal grant to produce the accessibility. In fact, I believe there's both Ontario grants and federal grants that will actually enable them to put lifts in there.
Yeah, so that would help, because then you could rent the rooms out not only to any group that might want to use it.
Yeah. And of course, you need the lift again. By one of the entrances, it doesn't necessarily have to be the front entrance; could be a side or back entrance, but it needs to be, so the main floor of the museum is lockable, but you can access certain parts of the building.
Yeah, so it's a very old building. It's pretty solidly built, to tell you the truth.
And Rick, in order to answer your question, the proceeds would go back to making the museum self-funding.
Yeah, that's what we want. We want to relieve the taxpayer the burden of keeping the building. It's a historical building, and there's only so much that the taxpayer should be. I mean, if we are a very, very prosperous region, then it wouldn't be a problem, but we are not.
Yeah,
and we find that we are always in debt anyway. Yeah. Do you really want to? And they're always looking for places to chop.
Yeah,
and a history museum is one of those places they can chop. They chopped the Willoughby one.
And here's the thing about this one, Dave, is that you raised it earlier on. You go to almost any city in Ontario, there is a military museum there. St. Catharines has one, Hamilton has one, Toronto has one, and probably Toronto's got about 5 or 6, if we're honest. So if you ask the question, why would I go to a military museum in Ontario, in Niagara Falls, when I've been to the military museum around the corner from me at home? That's a fair question.
The idea that it is locally focused, that's the thing. Remember Niagara Falls, the Niagara region, 60% of the War of 1812 happened right here. It happened from Stony Creek down here to Fort Erie. 60% of the entire War of 1812. You think of all the naval engagements, you think of the different raids the Brits made on Washington to burn it down and all that other stuff, and 90% or 60, almost 2/3 of the war happened right here on this peninsula.
Yeah,
and it was and it made Canada, because if the U.S. had won that war, then we'd be part of the U.S.
Yeah,
obviously, and particularly they picked their time very well, because the Brits were under an existential threat from Napoleon. It was within a whisker. They almost lost that and became absorbed in Napoleon's empire. So it's very, very important that way. Plus all the men and women that left from that building to go off to war.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, I'm not disputing any of that, Dave, but I'm just saying that is of interest to local people, local communities that have grown up and survived in Niagara Falls. That's not necessarily a reason to come for historical tourism for people to come to Niagara Falls, unless they happen to be ultra military buffs.
No, you don't have to be ultra military buff. You have to be interested in history. I go to other cities and I look in their museums, right? Because of a matter of interest.
Yep.
And because if you know history, that helps you out. So so basically, having an ability to preserve these things, the local history, and to basically give homage to those people that went off the war from Niagara Falls, and at the same time utilize that building. It is a building that was built by the feds, turned over to the city. What can we do with it? Yep. There are things that we can do with it. There are things we can have meeting rooms there. We already know that the police band practices there. We can get other bands to practice there. I think that the trick here is to make the building accessible so that more of it can be used. You know, you can even rent out a space, up there. Yeah. You can rent it out to a yoga studio or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah, accessibility is vital. And in fact, there might be some businesses that might want to rent, one or more rooms up there.
Yeah, you might be able to get a snake oil salesman to get up there, And,
well, it doesn't matter.
The trick is how do you pay for it and still without making huge profits, only enough profit to maintain the building and still serve your community.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what was going to keep this museum alive. Okay.
Yes.
All right. And let's move on. So to the municipal elections. So Niagara Falls, the current candidates for Niagara Falls. So now we've still got about 2 and a bit weeks to go.
What's Rick's question? Do you know what he means by that? Sorry to interrupt, but what's Rick's question? What is a MAT?
What is a MAT? I don't know. Municipal accommodation tax is all I can think.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You should do an audit. Yeah. Okay, they should do an audit on the MAT is what Mike's saying. Well, I don't disagree with you, but the MAT has a specific uses. It is defined in the municipal act, defined under law.
That keeps coming up at city council meetings too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The city has very little it can do with the MAT money.
I'm not so sure about that.
It's supposed to be for advertising the city. Well, maybe they need to in order to make that change, you have to get a provincial law change.
Is the MAT is the same as the tourist tax?
It replaced the tourist tax.
Okay. All right. Well, we can get into that a little later. And I'm prepared to talk about that. That's bullshit.
I have looked at it, Mike. Right? I looked at it before I did my campaign 4 years ago, because I wanted to make these exact same things. And basically, it's supposed to be for an organization to publicize the city. It's the intent of the MAT.
Let's see what.
And he says it's a huge resource for Niagara, and given the tourism industry, which is rich. Yes, I know it is.
What is the MAT?
It's supposed to be used for advertising the city. All right.
What is the MAT tax? What is it used for? Municipally. So I'm asking.
And again, Mike and I had this discussion. Could the MAT be used for infrastructure? And the answer is no. It cannot be used for infrastructure. It can be used.
MAT tax, the MAT tax. What is it used for in Niagara Falls, Ontario?
All right.
Mandatory fee charged on short-term accommodation. We already know that.
Yeah.
It applies directly to hotels, motels, inns, bed and breakfasts, and vacation rentals, Airbnb. As of April 1st, 2026, yeah, I remember, transitioned the MAT to a flat tax of 4% of the total room rate. What the MAT tax is used for in Niagara Falls. By provincial law, the revenue generated from the MAT is split to serve two main purposes: promoting the local tourism industry, and improving community livability for residents. Yes, now it's clear to me because we reviewed the agenda back in the spring, and I remember some of this stuff. Destination marketing and promotion. Half the revenue goes directly to Niagara Falls tourism.
Yeah.
The city's the city's official nonprofit destination marketing organization. They use these funds to run global advertising campaigns, world-class entertainment, blah, blah, blah. City infrastructure and livability. The remaining half of the tax is kept by the city of Niagara Falls. These funds go into public reserves to upgrade roads, parks, transit, and community services. This ensures that the heavy wear and tear caused by millions of annual tourists is paid for by the visitors themselves rather than local property taxpayers. And there you have it. That is the AI explanation. Yeah. And that sounds right.
Yeah,
if I remember correctly.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So before we do anything else, we're a couple of weeks away from the deadline for nominations in the city, in the municipalities. All the municipalities in Ontario will have the same deadline. At the moment, the candidates for mayor in Niagara Falls is Jim Diodati and Kevin Martineau. Right, Kevin has actually already started his campaign on Facebook. I know I've seen a lot of stuff by him. At the moment, the candidates for city councillor are Laurie Lococo, Mona Patel, Sheila DeLuca, who's a fairly well-known person, put her name in the list. Brad Pine, Gitto Tom, Brian Winnie Winrow, Darlene Kane, Celia Taylor, Jody Burdett, who we know about, Dan Moody, who is a long-time runner. He's run on several campaigns and never gotten in. Lillian Lumbar and Ruth Ann Neuwesteg, who's of course a current city councillor. And for District School Board of Niagara Trustees, there are 3 candidates: Helga Campbell, Todd Bright, and Rainey Gurn. And for Niagara Catholic District School Board Trustees, there are 3 candidates, two to be elected: Jim Marino, Joseph Bruzesi, and Tony Caruso are running for these. And Conseil, so the French School Board, to be elected 1 person, and you've got Amanda Leduc and Marcel Taking who are standing for that one. But the French Catholic School Board has no candidates yet. All right. So,
nobody's translated the application form into French yet.
I'm not going to say anything about that, right?
We need a huge, yeah, that would be nice. The idea that it came, I don't think the 2% that goes back into the roads and community, I think that's pretty much looked at. But the other one that goes over to the Niagara tourism stuff, yeah, I would like to see how that's really well done.
Yeah.
The means by which they had the other one where the hotel scooped the stuff, scooped the tax, and the tourist tax that they were imposing on people was vague and all that. I pay tourist tax. I pay tourist tax in many cities around the world where I've been, and it's just a thing. I remember being hit in Rome. Rome had a pretty heavy one, actually, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and it wasn't VAT; it was tourist tax, separate tourist tax.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything in Europe has what is called VAT, value added tax. Anyway, yeah. Okay, so so a shipping insider says that there is nothing going through yet. The US says the Straits of Hormuz are open. What's the truth?
Well, the truth is that the U.S. administration lies profusely. That's the truth. There might be a ship or two that sneaks through once in a while, and there has been incidences of that. Of course, there's the blockade, which the Americans have reinstituted, and of course, the Iranians are blocking the flow of oil or other transit through the strait. They are locked in this forever conflict because Donald Jesus Trump is a remarkably stupid man who got himself involved in a forever war at the behest of Bibi Netanyahu, who couldn't love this more. The U.S. cannot wiggle itself out of this war. It has devastated Iran. It has completely destroyed its nuclear capability back a year ago, and yet we are told that suddenly that the nuclear capability was supposed to be destroyed. They could not recover it for a minimum of 10 years. We were told over and over again by the big man himself. Then suddenly they were able to reconstitute their nuclear program out of thin air, it seems. And so they had to have another war with them. This, of course, is all a lot of malarkey. They hoped that they could that Netanyahu convinced the big dummy that a war would be good, that it could be done really quick and easy. And what's this about them closing off the Straits of Hormuz? Oh, that can't happen because we're going to decapitate everybody. So we are stuck in a forever war right now. What appears that could be. We saw Pete Hegseth approach the legislature in the United States and ask for $68 billion more for this war, to conduct this war, which tells you that they think it's going to go on for a very long time. The American taxpayer has already paid $40 billion for this war. And that's before this recent bunch of bombs started going off.
Yeah.
Which means it's probably much more than that. And they want $68 billion more to conduct the war. So the idea that they're actually, the southern Omani route that ships are going through there, well, that's rubbish. It's not happening. Some ships are sneaking through on the Iranian side, on the southern one, but not very many. When you're talking about enormous amounts of tankers and ships going back and forth there, it's not happening.
Yeah, exactly. And one or two, when you've got hundreds queued up, is a drop in the ocean, really, isn't it?
So the world economy is being crippled by this. They did get enough oil through, I guess, when they did have the ceasefire that took the heat off eventually. But we find that oil reserves are being reduced all around the world. That of course the munitions are being used up in incredible fashion, and the American people are spending incredible amounts of money on this war. One estimation, and I can't verify it, but one estimation I heard that the war in Iran at this particular time, at the $40 billion they owe, will cost every American taxpayer $600.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a lot, it's a lot of, a lot of spending that they're doing. And so essentially, the truth is there really is no safe zone. And you go to the Omani coast, there's a lot of islands there. It's very shallow there. There's a lot of danger there. You go to the the northern part, the Iranian side, it's it's got its problems as well. Whereas there's clearly bombs lined up to hit anybody who goes through the pre-war traffic zone. The main crossing point across the Straits of Hormuz.
This is a situation where it's easy to start a war, but it's hard to end it.
Yeah,
we found that the United States continues to do this. Vietnam is one of those situations where they won every battle and lost the war. Afghanistan, where they won every battle and lost the war.
Yep.
In Iraq, where they won every battle, may not have lost the war, but certainly didn't win it.
Yeah,
it's still a destabilized area with lots of insurgents, and ISIS is still working in there. So it requires the United States to have a military presence there to make sure that doesn't get out of hand. So that's the American taxpayer paying more money too. Again, because of their sort of ignorant intrusions in other conflicts. They don't think this one out.
Yeah.
Obviously, every military mind in the White House at the time, the Pentagon, had warned the president, if you do this, there's a chance that the Hormuz Strait will be closed off.
Yes.
That was obvious. That has been obvious for the last 40 years. It was obvious because when Iran and Iraq had that war back in the 80s, that's what they did. And blew the crap out of each other's oil tankers as they went through the Straits of Hormuz.
Yes,
obviously that was something they knew they were going to do. So why didn't they count on that before they started this dumbass war?
And essentially, while you have Oman in the middle, you have a massive loop that is surrounded on each side by Iran. So you have this massive loop where you're essentially having to go into Iranian water in order to get through this Straits of Hormuz. So naturally, of course, it's 100% surrounded by Iran. And most of the bombings of ships that have happened, where ships have been attacked by Iran, they've occurred on the Omani side. So if you go through on the Omani side, you're more likely to get hit by, by Iranian fire.
And the U.S. is doing their business too. They're disabling ships that they didn't green light to go through. The Iranians did.
Yeah.
I really feel sorry for those sailors, particularly the ones that are stuck in the Gulf. They're going to need supplies. They must be going stir crazy because, I hope they're letting them go off on shore.
Yep. Yeah. But the net result is, of course,
the airports to fly off to see their families.
Yeah. Of course, what is happening, the net result is that Saudi, for example, is pulling more oil out on the Red Sea side, I believe.
Well, that's not working either because the Houthis have closed off that the Red Sea now.
That's been a problem for years, but at least with the Red Sea side, you can get out through the Suez Canal.
You can't put a tanker through there, or at least you only have limited sized tankers that you can send through there because the Suez Canal can only take so much. That's why the huge tankers, well, some of them of course go through there, but you have to you can get some of them out through the Suez, but your markets are other places. So even if you take your tanker through the Suez, you're going to have to go all the way around Africa to get to the markets where you normally sell that to.
Absolutely, I know. Because if you're going to China, Malaysia, China, Japan, Indonesia type of things, you have to get out through the strait into the Arabian Sea. Whereas if you're going to North America, Europe, you can go through the Suez.
Yes. So basically, I don't know is Bab el Mandeb I keep forgetting the name of it.
Yeah, Bab
al
Mandab. Yeah,
is a narrow.
It's another choke point there. Yeah.
And the Houthis can control that very easy with a minimum amount of stuff. They're very poor. The Houthis is a very, very poor military operation. It is fighting. It's very determined. It is a Shia-based religious group. They are a fringe group even among the Shias, but they have this organization in Yemen. And they're very determined, very tough organization that has managed to really punch way above its weight. And it's amazing what they can do. The United States last year, Trump bombed the crap out of them like crazy, if you remember. And then they came to an agreement where the Houthis said they'll keep it open, but then they just shut it down again with more missiles. So no matter how many times the Israelis, the Saudis, and the Americans use enormous amounts of ordnance to destroy the Houthis, they keep bouncing back.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, again, but they haven't been making the financial demands that the Iranians have been making.
Well, they're connected with the Iranians. They're in compliance with the Iranians. Because for a couple of different reasons, as we've one thing, they're an insurgency group, and they're a Shia. They are a Shia group, so of course they're going to be supported like Hezbollah, which is a Shia group. You know, they're going to be supported by Iran. Remember, Iran is a theocracy, and the Shia form of its religion is very, very important to it. And its support of like-type religious figures is very important to them.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. I think we can kind of call it quits for today on this particular one, because we kind of run over anyway.
Yes, well, it's hard to tell who's lying the most, the Iranians or the U.S. Usually you think you have, we can kind of figure out the lies of the U.S. and put the equation to it because we're a Western nation. So we are familiar with the kind of lies that a Western nation does. I'm not so sure that that's working in this particular case because the lies keep coming up. They're kind of like a Band-Aid type of lie. So you tell the first lie and the lie doesn't work. And so you got to put a lot of Band-Aid lies on the first lie and more Band-Aid lies. So the layers of lies, Band-Aid upon Band-Aid of lie, is hard to really suss out. They use the excuse that we're not going to tell you how much damage or how many people we got killed or how many people got wounded because we don't want the Iranians to know that they're being successful. That doesn't work at all, and that's a big lie in itself.
Yeah,
so, you know, and the Iranians, of course, they're going to say anything they want. You know, they said that they killed Lindsey Graham. Well, they said that because God did it for them.
They could.
God did it for them. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They can, and God did it for them. Yeah. And as Ricky points out, people lie in war. It's called propaganda. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But in fact, actually, even in war, most of what happens in Western nations is we don't talk about it, right? We keep, I'm sorry, says the Ministry of Defense. I'm sorry, we can't talk about that. It's ongoing military operations forbids us to talk about it. That's the kind of message that is out there, right?
Well, Hegseth and Trump have claimed that this war has been won many times over.
Yes.
A month ago, they calculated that DJT said that the war had been won 38 different times.
Yes.
38 times. Hegseth himself has talked about the resounding victory, but can't explain why the Straits of Hormuz are closed if they've had such a resounding victory, and why the Iranians keep shooting back when they're not supposed to have any missiles. As you remember early on in the war, within the first 3 weeks, They said 92% of all Iranian missiles had been destroyed and reduced. They're down to only 8% of their stockpile. My, 8% is a rather large stockpile. And just as an end, I'm just like, I will always bring up Gaza. Do not forget Gaza. It's getting pushed to the back pages. And that nightmare is continuing. We still do not have any Western journalists in there at all. And there's a reason for that. Yeah. And the Israelis and the Americans do not want to open that up.
All right. And
without further ado, I bid you adieu.
Thank you.